these teams in the middle where the access is such that if you repeat what you've done, you're in.
Yeah, it's well, I've had a couple talks where you talk about Baylor in 21 and TCU. When you came to these, what everybody thought they were on paper and what they turned out to be, and now you can just keep adding more quality teams that continue to play well. I'm saying it's going to be matchups, distance of travel, is that going to be a factor after week from a late kickoff and how your team responds? I think it's truly exciting, and I agree with the commissioner that I think top to bottom is going to be as close as anyone in the country, where some of the other conferences I think still have a few that create large gaps.
How much have you brought it up?
We haven't talked much. I've a few times during spring, and as we go through, I'm trying to talk about managing expectations, but embracing some of these things that are coming, because this program, as you guys know, we've been begging for something like this to happen for so long. So I don't want to temper it, but there's a type where you got to be where your feet are at, as we like to say, and stay focused on the things that got you here. And if we start talking too much about what's happening in November, December, or something like that, guys, we're going to talk about being a major letdown. So there's so many other intangibles, as we know, with health and other things, that we got to make sure we control what we can. But it's refreshing, and I've usually been one that would always just, and I've tried to change that, because I think these young men deserve it. I think our fans deserve it, and but we're going to embrace that. But as soon as we hit the field for the first time, none of that matters anymore.
And real quick, I talked to Caleb Leipold. I just mentioned you, just because you both coached at small schools. He mentioned that he knew you. Did you know him much?
Yeah, we knew each other. Like when he was at Sioux Falls, I was at Whitewater, and we'd be at those AFCA conventions, and then for the coach of the year and all that, and we were fortunate enough to be the lower level guys. We'd go to these big receptions, and none of the upper level guys would talk to us, so we'd stand there with my wife in the corner talking, waiting to take our seats. So we chuckle about it and stuff. It's good though, but extremely happy for Kalen's success, because again, he kind of bet on himself to go the FCS route and got his opportunities. Outstanding coach.
Speaking of things you can't control, how are you going to manage not having a home game and keeping that as normal as you can?
Yeah, I guess I don't view it as not having home games. It's just going to be different. Yeah, and I know what you mean, Blair. And I said it's controlling what you can, but I think our players are excited to play at Arrowhead. I think Children's Mercy, though they don't fully know, but when we get there, they're going to see it's going to be intimate and on top, and it's going to have some electricity to it. And it's one of those that deal with what you can, because I'd like to think that some of our Kansas City metro fan base will find this maybe more accessible, and we're going to have some other ways we might gain fans through this. And again, we're going to make the most of it. Do I wish in a way, but it's not. We have to keep moving this program forward for this season, but for every year moving forward in this competitive situation. Yeah, do I wish we could have found a way, but it's not doable, because that stadium needs to be updated, and I think we found very good options.
Is it from a logistical game standpoint? Is this going to be anything much different?
No. In fact, I've told you, first two games, our team hotel is going to be about 15 minutes away. It's actually going to be closer, the first two. And it's probably going to be 5 minutes shorter to Arrowhead from where we're going. And, we take the interstate versus K10, and because I'll stop and go. So it's actually that timing from when we're going to be at the same hotel. We're all but one game, and that's more of a scheduling deal. So all of that routine, as long as we keep the routine as consistent as we can, I think we'll be okay.
Where do you guys usually stay?
In Olathe.
Oh, in that.
There's conventions, right up the interstate.
Lance, you've talked about the growth that Cole Ballard's had this offseason. What's the biggest difference between November Cole Ballard and current day Cole Ballard?
Well, strength, conditioning, body looks different, but maturity and understanding in the offense. And, I still think he has to grow and understand, like the K-State game. He tried to make plays that weren't there, and he tried to create something when we needed it. I think through experiences you find out there's sometimes you just got to live for another day and do some of those things. But I continue to see him more comfortable in what we're doing. I've said it to you guys earlier. Cole Ballard was accepted by the locker room as quick as any quarterback I'd ever been a part of as a freshman. The way that he had instant respect from some of the guys. In fact, it was one of those we might do something and have a guy break somebody down or say something. And it was amazing how I found how the guys had really embraced him over the summer.
What do you guys do for Jalen as far as load management or different things at practice and stuff to make sure?
Yeah, I haven't got to anything yet from our training staff if there needs to be a concern on load management and things. I think I know we will, and watch the reps and the amount of throws. And one thing in our practice philosophy, we go pretty fast, run multiple huddles. We'll just have to watch total throws and how his body's feeling. And I think I said earlier, I've really tried to refrain of asking the young man every day how you feel, because it seems to be and I know this. His body, he has taken care of his body better this way. He's embraced some of the things that they've encouraged him to do for holistic body, core development, things like that. I think it's like I say, I can't wait to see him.
Do you hope that he'll still be able to run the football as macho as well as he did before some of these injuries, Charles?
Absolutely. There hasn't been anything said, hey, he's going to be able to play, but you got to reduce the quarterback run game. And nobody has said any restrictions of anything that is, football is going to be football, and there's going to be we're not going to be crazy, but we're not going to. We're gonna be smart with him as we go through it. But when it's time, because here's the thing, his ability to create things is what partially makes him who he is, and that's going to be hard to temper when it happens anyway. And nobody has said that he couldn't.
Lance, as you approach this year's fall camp, just what kind of lessons have you learned from past fall camps that you'll be taking into this
we continue. It's funny, I told the coordinator to start putting plans together, this and that, and then Jeff Grimes kind of looked at it, he goes, well, Coach, I said there's some templates out there. And he goes, yeah, but none of these practices really seem to be exactly the same each time. Well, we tweaked it because of the weather. We tweaked it, put some more breaks in. We moved something, but we always will do that. And I think last year was one of our best camp formats that we've ever had. We're going to utilize the grass availabilities more than we ever have because we're playing on grass. And our players really came out of camp last year feeling it was their best training camp based on schedule, time, and everything. And I think we continue to learn. I continue to learn is it better to keep them in the building 30 more minutes, or is it better just to go over how many more plays, or is it better to get them out of the building, let them be a little more mentally fresh, hopefully get rest sooner, that we can be a better football team. And I think we've come with a pretty good system, and hopefully we can improve on it.
Coach, you've had experience having both Devin and Daniel. It's good to see you. Is there a method to the madness, or is it more freelance how you use both of those guys in the offense, Devin and Daniel?
Oh yeah, you got to remember. You got to
talk about the Oklahoma kid.
You got to talk about. You got to give me a Skinner question then.
I will.
Daniel Highshaw is going to be a wild card in this thing for us this year, because when Daniel's healthy, he's a really good football player, physical guy, and I think the nice thing about it is we're maybe not quite as deep at the moment at tight end as we were last year with Mason Fairchild. I think we have some guys, but the nice thing is I think we're going to be able to play those guys together a little bit more. And then, Daniel's had experience from high school being that wildcat type guy.
Exactly.
And
so you're telling me that's in the mix now?
I'm gonna say we've always got options. We have Torrey Laughlin was a guy for us that played some of that last year.
Right.
So we've got some weapons. And the tough thing is it's become a good problem because we have so many older players. But when a guy is a little discouraged based on playing time or touches, I kind of go through the names and say, he's a pretty good player, who's coming off the field and who's not getting the ball. But I know I think Daniel's had his best summer in our program, and I'm really excited to see what also he gives us.
I know you still augment it with portal, but are you to the point with your program where when you lose offensive linemen to graduation, you lose guys in the defensive line, you got guys that are now ready to step up in the developmental way?
You know, this last year we went more portal O-line because we still had some gaps. But yeah, that's the goal. I've yet to find a coach that really wants to admit that, hey, I'm just going to be all portal, you know, or whatever. Now, there's someone we want it to be. We will not be there this year because of 30-some seniors, okay? That's just, it's not fact. But we want to be to a point where a guy matriculates through the program, you replace him with a high school player. And if you lose somebody else in between for another reason, could be injury, or it could be portal, or it could be a position change, then you may have to go to the portal to find that like we have 5 senior receivers this year. That's unheard of. And receivers 4 and 5 are the other seniors. And those guys had thoughts of leaving. But when they start talking about their experiences and all of that, they know they're in a good spot. They've had a good experience and they know they've had success on the field. Why go start all over again? Now, our high school recruiting or our receiver position recruiting is going to be part portal, part high school. It has to.
Lance, you had talked at some point last season about getting waivers for Logan Brown and Ron McGee after their injuries.
Yeah.
Did you end up getting those approved for those guys?
Well, Logan's won't. You don't get it till after the total. Ron has been approved, so Ron is back. Ron will be part of what we're doing. It'll be interesting. You know, he's kind of a wild card. Also, at the defensive end spot, he was playing his best football. He had his best 3 weeks, probably consistent in our camp until he got hurt last August.
And also, I don't think anyone's asked you about Leighton Cure since he joined the program. Just wondering with Leighton, like.
Yeah, you know, I know Coach Gildersleeve has been extremely impressed with Leighton and where he comes from. You know, he's our second of this year, third overall Division II recruit off the portal that we've taken. And like I said, we're a little bit of uncertainty in some spots yet at the tight end spot that we want to look at. And it'll be interesting to see, you know, how he handles it when it's pads on, speed of the game, everything that we're doing. But right now, it is definitely pointed that he has a chance to help us.
Coach, you guys have had have had success recruiting in the state of Arizona.
Yeah.
You guys played in the game at Chase Field last season. Now with ASU and Arizona joining the conference, how do you think that affects your recruiting in the state of Arizona, and does that even put more emphasis on
I hope it can help us and continue to help our brand recognition, so to speak, there. I think we've gotten off to a good start again there this year. It is a spot, I think, where, you know, sometimes we look at Phoenix metro area, so to speak, as a transient type a place that people move to, much like they do Atlanta. So it's not always kind of born and bred. So some people have connections to our area or other parts of the country. The 2 schools joining us, I think, will also help when you can say that there's an opportunity. I think when you look at proximity for us at the Kansas City airport and opportunity to get from Phoenix to here, there's a lot of pluses, and that's one of the nice things, though we're not in a heavily populated state. We have found to be advantageous to us is that we can get to a lot of different pockets of the country where there's good football players, and we know that's an area that continues to get better and better in high school football.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
agree that Daniel Highshaw could start for a lot of college football programs. What does it say about his loyalty that he decided to come back knowing that Devin Neal is still there and will get a lot of carries?
Yeah, and we've talked to Daniel, especially at that position and how it's viewed at the next level and things. You're going to need more than one guy. There's stuff, and that's tough sometimes. And that's the nice thing I've seen with Daniel is his maturity in understanding. You know, early on, like everyone, there's competition in the room. There's still competition, but you sometimes through time you understand I'm competing more against myself to be the best player I can be and a way to help this team, because let's face it, at the next level, they evaluate it on their own terms. Just like there's times in high school we see a player and say, yeah, I don't know if he was really used to the fullest. We can make this guy even such and such. The NFL does the same. They look at it and go, yeah, you know what? They didn't use him right, or they didn't do this. We're going to make, because we'll see a healthy Daniel Highshaw, speed, power, ability. To me, he'll rank with anybody.
Defensive guys, I asked him maybe for a sleeper guy or a breakout player this fall, and both of them really quickly said O.J. Burrows. I'm curious, what makes O.J. so good, and do you think he can take his game to another level this fall?
You know, O.J.'s played a fair amount of football for us. You know, he's not the biggest safety in the conference by any stretch. I think he's worked extremely hard at being a better tackler. The thing that everybody likes about O.J. is that he's a pretty savvy football player. He sees him and breaks on the ball well, has great hands. I think one year, when he was in high school in Georgia, he led the state of Georgia in interceptions. Then he transferred to IMG, and I think he had the most in the state of Florida. He can see and anticipate, and I think, Kenny Logan did an outstanding job for our program, but he also, I think, overshadowed some of the other guys that are now going to have an opportunity. And I'll put it, they say OJ. Somebody else asked me that question. I said Marvin Grant. Because I think Marvin has really come into his own. He's the healthiest he's been. And I think when you look at size and speed and physicalness from a defensive back perspective, he really is going to help us what Kenny vacated.
You mentioned Logan Brown earlier.